Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 461, recorded live on Saturday, January 28th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning from Standing Stone Games, community manager Cordovan.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, like 3 weeks in a row.
I know, right?
This is what happens when I throw together shows late. um, we also have joining us from Thelanis, Evennote.
Hello, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, welcome back. This week's screenshot, Handy gets out of this world in the 302nd DDO screenshot of the week. It's a nice screenshot, actually. Very, very pretty. I like the Blade Forged, Golden Blade Forged Warlock look going on there. So that's really
Yeah, it's
nice.
very cool.
While we're on the topic, is there a new email yet for submitting, a new process for submitting screenshots?
Yes, it's, I believe, contact@standingstonegames.com.
There you go. So, it's been a while. Could you just take a quick moment to, if people are interested in maybe doing screenshots of the week, what are some tips? As the person who regularly looks at all of the ones that come in, what are some tips you might have about submitting screenshots?
First thing I would recommend is that you do Alt-Z to get rid of your UI. It's not required theoretically, but I've yet to see a really great looking screenshot that has a bunch of UI elements in it, Generally, you're going to want it to be as high quality as possible. I mean, that said, we actually, if you look at the screenshots, we have some that are probably set on medium or even low settings. So it really has a lot more to do with composition and framing and all the other kinds of things as anything else. Otherwise, the only other suggestion I'd really have is it needs to be at least 800 by 600, probably bigger if you can do it, but we have had a few that are 800, 600, but if it's less than, like, say, 600, we just really can't use it. Otherwise, just take a look at like what's been done for the screenshot of the week. I mean, we've got more than 300 of them now, so you can kind of get a sense of sort of what we're looking for and what some of the other winners are. There are no hard and fast rules, really. It's just, hey, this looks awesome. Is really about the only judge. But I think over time you'll see some of the same places constantly get submitted. Like, I do like people's. It's a very cool shot to stand on that statue in the harbor, but I get like 3 of them a week, so probably not that one. Please. There's a couple that we just get all the time. Not that I don't dislike it, but I mean, geez, seriously, we've got like 1,000 of them. So, but otherwise, yeah, if it looks cool, that's really the only thing. It's pretty open ended in terms of sort of what it looks like on that. The only other thing is we can't take, it's not that we can't, but we won't take screenshots that are heavily photoshopped. That's not to say you can't do a little bit of work on that or something, but for the most part we don't want it to be like super fakey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you want it to be kind of a glamour shot of the game.
Yeah.
Some tips that I would offer too is if you want to get like a good action shot, there's actually a trick where you can take it as video, record it as video, and then you can kind of slide back and forth and find that perfect moment to do it. Also, newer content tends to I've noticed be a common theme sometimes. So during, say, the Midwinter Festival, an icy glamour shot of the games or the ski jumps or something might have a better chance of pulling out a victory that week. Not always, but that happens sometimes. In any case, we like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through YouTube, Twitch, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by CyberEars, the awesome podcast hosting network. The next show will maybe be next weekend. If there is one next weekend, it will probably be a recorded show. I'm kind of in a little bit of a kind of a busy season, as it were. But I'm hoping to get something out next week, and it just might be kind of a recorded show. On the podcast this week, we're going to be talking a little bit about what's coming out on Lamania, more about Update 34, mostly about Reaper mode, because that's kind of what's, I think, still being worked on at this point in that. Also, other things we got going on this week. We'll be talking a little bit about some of the transition-y stuff. We got Cordovan here that people might want to be aware of. And then kind of our featured discussion this week is going to be on UI tips. And what do we mean by UI? It's kind of an all-encompassing term a little bit. So we're going to talk about pretty much all the stuff that you interact with. Chat channels, floating numbers, your hotbars, that kind of stuff is really what we're looking to go for here. And this is coming from Scott on Kenneth. He's asking about advanced uses of the chat box, particularly in terms of creating your own chat channels, is really kind of what he's talking about. Now, some other stuff with kind of what that means. It's kind of an all-encompassing topic, so I encourage people as they listen to this show, throw out your own tips. Put them in the comments. For those who are listening live, you can throw it in the chat channel, and we'll probably read it as long as it makes sense. So that's kind of where we're going. So I want to start with chat windows and what you can do with them, because you can do a surprisingly lot with them, even though their UI is maybe a little bit cumbersome. For starters, if you can right-click on the titles, and it gives you some different options of what you can do with them. The problem is if you right-click on it, you kind of have to pick an option, or I can never get that thing to go away. So let's start with this. Evennote, what are some things you like to do with your chat windows? You just kind of leave them there, or there's certain settings you like to pull them in for?
One of the first things I do is take root out of party chat and put it in its own window. And I've got a window. I use the guild chat, the party chat, the regular. And when I'm streaming, because normally I have my chat window covered up, but I've got a couple guild members who don't use voice, I have a separate party chat window that I stick up in the upper left by the map and all that. I really should mess with them more than I do, but I don't.
Yeah, you raised a really good point. If you are streaming, and it's becoming a little bit more popular these days, you should probably consider obscuring the chat window a little bit. Or if you don't, make sure everyone knows that you're streaming, and then just use the party chat window a little bit. That I've kind of done both. Right now, if you watch my streams, I actually take the DDO logo, and I parked it right over the screen. Now I didn't like the big black box it made, so I made the black transparent, which means that the logo itself is kind of see-through, but it obscures it enough that you can't really get a good idea of what people are saying there. It's just kind of a courteous thing and maybe a little protective thing that you can do there. What I tend to do, and it might seem weird to most people, my main chat window has most of what you can have in there. It's got loot, party, guild, user channels. The things I do take out are NPC. That covers like when you talk to an NPC, all the dialogue text goes in there. Now, if you're new and you want to kind of experience some of that stuff, and maybe you're not the one always talking, but you want to know what they're saying, this can be a great thing to have, that NPC chat channel, as it were. I would tell you, make a new page, a new tab for your chat window, and put that in there. There's also Say, which is not really that useful. Say is usually things like if you see kobolds running down the sewer, usually what it is it's the kobolds, like whatever the kobolds scream out, like yark yark and stuff like that. So there's really nothing there at all. So you don't really need that. that's kind of how I tend to do that. I do take. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've actually set up my chat channels. I can't actually remember if party defaults to have loot in it, but I take it out. I don't like having it in there.
Pretty sure it does, because I think I've had to take it out of all of my party chat windows and put it in its own window if I want to keep it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does too. The reason I do that is because I have loot in my main tab, and once you get to a chest, particularly if you're raiding, and this is why a lot of people don't like to leave loot in their main tab, it scrolls really fast. Because especially if you get like a shroud where you've got 2 chests and there's 12 people looting. So
right.
it can be pretty good. Welcome back, Cherry.
Hey, sorry about that. My computer blue screened.
Yeah, no, hey, that happens. It was only a matter of time. Let's see if I can get my windows reorganized. Hey, there we go. Cool. So we're talking about chat channels. And some of the things we're talking about is what do you like to do for your chat channels. The other thing that there's one thing I've kind of waffled back and forth on is the DM text. And I took DM text out of my main chat window because it is kind of busy. And then the reason I put it back in was because when you're doing raids, i.e. part 1 of the Shroud, and especially if I'm clicking in and out of DDO a lot, which means the sound gets muted, sometimes you miss the DM saying things like, hey, there's a portal keeper. Hey, if you don't kill this portal keeper, you're going to lose. Hey, you didn't kill the portal keeper, you lost. But the DM text will actually show up in your chat window. So that's why I put it back in there. And there are other places where there's some good tips about what you should maybe be doing that you'll get from the DM. So that can be really helpful. But other than that, the other thing I do is I always create a new chat window for user chats, so that I have, if I want to go through, I can isolate through the different tabs: guild chat, party chat, user chats, and then also I do the same thing with combat. So you can see, which is kind of already a default thing. The combat stuff doesn't go in your main chat window anyways.
Yeah. That's about the only suggestion. To be honest, I'm kind of lazy when it comes to chat channels, which, yes, it causes trouble, and I just sort of ignore it. But the big real suggestion I have is just make sure that combat text is going in its own window, because you don't want that mixing up with party or guild chat and all the rest.
If you think loot stuff scrolls by way too fast, that's you'll be amazed how fast combat goes. Some other things you can consider that I want to mention with chat windows is you can type /help. I think that's the right command, and it'll give you all the different commands you can do. If you've never tried to figure out what you can do, what's really fun is you can do some really fun things, and a lot of people may not know this, but there's like all these different emotes. You can actually type the emote and then type something after that, and you'll do that animation, but it'll say like you do something else, right?
I do that fairly regularly. I love that.
So if you want to say bite your finger at someone, to quote an old play, you could say /point bites his finger at so-and-so, and it'll actually come out your character name bites his finger at so-and-so. So you can have some fun with that. You can do some kind of fun things with that. The other thing is you can actually undock those windows and have 2 windows. If you see some people on streaming, they actually have 2 chat windows. I personally don't like that. It doesn't work on my screen real estate. That's just what it comes down to.
Me neither. Yeah, I've actually seen people who have like 3 or 4 different chat windows. They'll have one for guild chat, one for combat, and then one for everything else or something like that. Some people really, really like that. But yeah, I agree. For me, it's just I want that screen real estate for something else.
Yeah, and I always assume those people are playing with like 40-inch screens and have just massive amounts of screen real estate or something like that.
Yeah.
So that I tend not to. And if you can watch DDOCast and you can see that. I do have a guildie who's actually in the chat who started twitching, and he uses 2 windows, one for for channels, and I think one for guild and party is what he's saying. But yeah, I read pretty fast, so I also enlarge. If you look at DDOCast, you can see this, and I've actually enlarged the chat window because the default size is like 2 lines, and I make it bigger so it takes about 6 or 8 lines or something like that, and that works really well for me. And then if I need to, like if we're looting and I see something scroll by in blue, I know there was something in guild chat, and I can just flip over to my guild chat tab and see that. Or sometimes maybe if there's something in the chest that, ooh, I really want that, switch over to party chat and see if they're offering it up or stuff like that. So I can kind of isolate things like
that. For chat, it's more complex than I really get into, but you can use like alias commands to do various things like changing color and all that. There's some good guides on the DDO forums about it, but I personally have never really played around with it too much. So.
And you can also, so we should talk about chat channels, because you can join channel and leave channel, and that's the actual command. So it's / join channel or leave channel, the chat name, and then a password if there is one. And as long as that chat is not already in use with a password, you'll join it. And you can, if no one is in it, you have now created one, and lucky for you, you own one. Mostly people tend to use that as kind of an alternative to guild, by which I mean you can have more people than just your guild in it. I know my guild tends to use, there's a couple people that tend to use our quote guild chat channel, which has more people than just in our guild in it, almost more often than guild chat. I've actually given a few people a little hard time.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're asking people on a raid, and you didn't ask people in the guild first.
And depending on the server too, there's some really active ones. I'm thinking Sarlona's defense channel is really popular, and there are a couple others as well that have kind of become de facto raiding group channels and things like that.
That's usually why they get created is the kind of quote allies of a guild or certain people, and I've been in a few that it's like, okay, well, it's time to leave this one. It's died, or it's moved to another one or something like that. So but you can do that.
There might be developer chat channels in the in-game world.
Funny, a little bit off topic, but there was a funny story where my guild had a closed channel with a password, and someone asked for it, and I accidentally typed it in party chat.
Nice.
I misspelled it though, so you couldn't actually it wasn't actually correct, but it was kind of a funny moment. Yeah. So let's see other things with chat channels. Is there anything else we should mention with chat channels?
If you screw things up, like you're actively clicking and you accidentally destroy one or whatever, you can recreate it by right-clicking on the main user chat panel and then restoring to like the default.
Oh, nice. That's pretty good. I know you can, if you use up arrow or down arrow, it'll cycle through your last chats, your last things you typed.
Yep.
That does not cross over between the tabs you're on, though. You can actually switch between tabs, and it's like different commands, right? And you'll notice when you're depending on what chat tab you're in, it'll actually tell you what your default channel is that when you type. So if you're in the party chat tab, if you type, it just goes to party chat. So theoretically, if you wanted to make it so anytime you typed, it automatically went to party chat instead of accidentally going to general chat or something like that, you could take your party chat and populate it with whatever you want and make that your main chat channel. So you can do kind of funny things like that.
Control-C, Control-V does work. A lot of the basic just kind of keyboard shortcuts do actually work, even if they don't necessarily look like they do necessarily right away. But, certainly I've used a lot of Control-V or Control-C, Control-V like for live streams and typing in admin commands and things like that. So those actually work pretty well.
I think you can macro things too. Because I've seen some people put out some impressive displays. I'm like, you've got that saved somehow. You did not just type that in.
Yeah, when you see somebody type the same thing in 3 different channels that you're in, and they've got it all color coordinated and stuff, and they
Yeah.
type it like 3 times in 2 seconds, that's definitely a macro.
Well, that's actually you can do that with like your up arrows, right? So if you put something in one chat channel that's really clever and creative, and then you push up or enter up, it'll put it up again, and then if you push the home button, it takes you back, and then you can just change what comes after the slash to redirect it. I've done that a lot of times, but in any case, okay, so that's about chat tabs. Let's talk about hotbars, which is kind of probably the other thing that you're most likely to move around and stuff like that. I my personal experience is I played the game for 2-3 years, something like that, and then on a whim I watched someone online. I watched a video or something, and I realized through watching the video that you can have more than one hotbar on your screen. And it was revolutionary, and it changed my life. And now, someone was giving my guildie, Helena Kyber, hi Helena, he's taken to streaming a little bit, and someone was saying, "Oh wow, as a cleric, you've got 14 hotbars," and I counted. I'm on my monk. My monk has 18 hotbars out. So
Nice.
I'll tell you how I organize
I
mine.
think my record's about 14.
There you go. So
20.
Evennote, what do you like for your hotbars?
Oh man, that is a loaded question because my hot bars are a hot mess. Uh, Usually I just kind of throw things on there wherever I have a blank space for them, but what I try to do is have like my very first hot bar upper left is like weapons, and then upper that depends on what the tune is. Melee tunes aren't going to have spells for the most part. I'm probably not going to be switching a lot of weapons on a caster, so it depends. I do like to try. In theory, I love to have organized hotbars. In practice, totally doesn't work that way. The other thing I really, really, really should do, and I haven't done yet on any of my tunes after more than 6 years playing, but I am going to someday when I stop progressing, is have a hotbar too that has all of the standard gear you normally wear. So if you're, falling in lava a lot and all your gear gets destroyed and you've got to go back and repair it, you know what you're putting back on. But, yeah. And I like to put like tactical feats kind of in the middle. But like I said, whether I actually do, that's another story.
Yeah, for me, the most important one, of course, is bar number 1, the one on the bottom, and that's the first 10. That first bar is stuff that my regular cycle that I do just about every attack. And then, if I'm doing any kind of healer in that tends to go on one of the other bars, like just as a healing, so that no matter what, I can just go control to that and just hit a button to spam heal under a crisis, Otherwise, I just try to keep spells and items separate, and I try to keep my items largely grouped together so that I can swap between boots and rings and that kind of thing. But sometimes I'm better than others. And then I like to keep the top of my heart bars to be largely like consumables, things like that, the potions and scrolls.
So the first thing I'll say with hotbars is I recommend taking a standardized approach on your characters as much as possible. What works really well for me is because I've got 14 different characters, the general layout is going to be the same. So what I do, if you look at my screen, and let's see if I can do it as a mirror image, so you can actually look at the camera. So this is mirror. My hands are mirrored for myself. But so on the right side of my screen is usually 2 hotbars, and what lives there is consumables. So that's where I put and they're stacked next to each other. So the first bar that's closest to the center of the screen, the first 5 slots are always resistant or resisting energy, whether that's a potion or the spell. That's where that lives. And then at the bottom of that is your curatives. So you're talking remove curse, which is usually the bottom one, so it's the easiest to find. Poison, disease, that kind of stuff. The next bar in is usually where I keep some res cakes. I usually keep less used consumables like mnemonic pots, death ward potions, restore potions, excessive healing potions. If I pick up a stack of cure moderate wounds that I know I'm not going to use in a pinch. They're just going to be like, oh, I'm in between battle. This is a good time to use those up. That's kind of where that stuff gets thrown. The top, so then I have usually 2, maybe 3 bars at the top of my screen. The stuff that goes there is stuff I use rarely. I'm not usually touching. Examples of this are XP potions, store items, bells, Slayer boosts, Jewels of Fortune, those kind of things. You'll also find my Panther and Owl Bitters there. Feats like improved precise shot or precision, or not precision. What's the archer's focus? I usually put those 2 there. My monk has the stances up there. My ranger has his various archer stances up there. That's kind of where that stuff tends to go. The left of my screen is all my gear, and I'll usually have like 5 tabs here or 5 hotbars here, and I put pretty much all of my gear there. It gets kind of cluttered, but it's just something I found that really works for me, so that I know what. It's not only just find something else; it's I know what I'm wearing. Okay, let me rephrase that. I theoretically know what I'm wearing if I look there. I still go through whole quests and realize I'm wearing my haggle item. I mean, that still happens. That hasn't changed. But so that's what's on that side of the screen. My casters also usually end up having their weapons there just because they run out of room. The bottom is kind of my main area. That's the stuff that I'm going to use a lot more often. Usually, so like I've got my number 1 tab, and I don't control number stuff at all. So usually it's like whatever my 10 numbers are. 5 for me is pretty much always a big heal, or whatever I can manage with that. 5 is kind of the emergency heal. 9 is usually kind of other healing. 0 tends to be something that's kind of unique to that class. Rage goes there. Lay on Hands tends to go there. 9 these days is usually Rejuvenation Cocoon. And then, kind of my main attack, like click attacks. Weapons are usually kind of in the hotbars above them. Spells kind of get organized by type or thematic things. So I'll put like AoE stuff kind of in a clump, or kind of that idea. And then the right side of those bars tends to be things that are, again, more spells, or that's where I tend to put my feats that are stancy kind of feats, like past life feats and stuff like that. That's where I put that over there. And then I do a couple other things. You'll find that all of my...
far more highly organized than I am.
I am OCD organized. I am way OCD organized. And then what I like to do is...
much better than me too.
Anything that teleports. So like if I push this button and it's going to take me out of the quest, I bury that behind my number 1 hotbar. So I always have a hotbar that's behind that one, so I have to physically change it before I can accidentally click it and boot myself out of a dungeon.
My bard got in trouble one time. She had just leveled up and gotten D-Door, and I just threw it in the first available space on the hotbar, and I forget there was something next to it she used a lot, and it's like, middle of a fight in Shroud, and she accidentally throws up a D-Door. People were not happy.
Well, D-Door's not on this buried hotbar, because D-Door can be an oh shoot moment thing, and that needs to be in a readily identifiable place on every single character that has D-Door, so I always know where it is. For a while,
but you shouldn't
D-Door
put it
moved around
next
a
to
little bit.
something you're clicking all the time.
No, I tend not to do that. The last thing I'll say with hotbars that I do is also buried behind my number 1. For my healing characters, I have what I call my God Mode of Healing bar, which is when stuff hits the fan, I can switch to that, and it's nothing but heal buttons in descending order.
Yeah, that's what I was saying too. I do that as well, and usually I try to be more precise about it. But I like to keep a bar just for healing, so that no matter what, if I'm falling off my chair, I can just slam the keys at that hot bar, and odds are I'm going to heal myself or someone else. So no matter how crazy it gets, I can just sort of, this one will heal somehow.
Yeah. Usually, if they're a healing type, so my divines and my bard, usually on my main hotbar, there's one is usually going to be heal, or the best single target heal spell I can have. Uh, and then there's usually like a mass spell, so I can try and hit multiple people. But if I really need to do some serious healing, I'll switch to my. And I move stuff around a lot within those frameworks. It's kind of the primary bars that I'm always using. You'll see stuff move around in there all the time, depending on what's going on. Like I know if I'm going to be doing more healing, I'll throw an extra heal thing in there, or it just kind of depends on what I've got active. I tend not to use more than 10 numbers, and really like 1 through 6 are really my prime things. I'm kind of actually a terrible monk player because I'm just not a very click heavy person. I tend not to like builds that are too clicky in their or like if I need to click more than 10 things to make it work, I usually don't do it. It's just kind of how I am.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say 2 more things is one is lock your hotbars. Locking control equals will lock your hotbars and unlock your hotbars. It still lets you put more stuff on, but you can't just like accidentally throw something off your hotbar. Which let me tell you from experience, when you're healing the tank and he's getting pummeled and you accidentally drag off your main heal spell, it's not a good day at the office. So.
Or if you are the tank and you're trying to heal yourself and you accidentally drag off your lay on hands. Not that I've ever done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The other thing you'll see me do a lot is like unique items. Like if you'll find most of my characters now, they still have the hound control stones on a hotbar, usually the top hotbar. Just so that I don't have to find them every time I run. If I'm running something like that a lot of times if I'm going to run a challenge, like the Kobold challenges, I'll pop in, grab everything, put it on my hotbar, leave, and then actually do the challenge. That's kind of some things I tend to do. There you go. That's my OCD hotbar stuff.
You win. You are far more organized than I. I'm like usually searching through my inventory for those, asteroid rocks and Abbott and stuff. Not like I did that over the weekend, but,
Yeah, I actually have those on my hotbar now, so as soon as I pick them up, they're there. Now, remembering to equip them is another story, but at least they're right there where I can see them.
Yeah, it's useful if you're going to be running that stuff a lot. It's also just useful to know that you have it in your inventory. I mean, I would tell you, if you're going to run Hound, even if you're not going to be the controller, maybe at the end, and if you see a control stone around and you know you're going to run Hound a lot, put it on your hotbar somewhere. So when everyone's going, who picked up the last stone? You can like, oh, hey, I got it. It's on my hotbar. So.
Nice. I guess this is about as good a time as any to talk about, but not everyone uses the same number of hotbars for every character. What you set up for, say, a cleric might be different than, say, a barbarian. I tend to find the number of hotbars I have grows depending on how many spells that particular class casts. You can you can save your layout, and it is /UI layout. So /UI space layout space save. And whatever your layout is, not everything in the hotbars, but the number of hotbars, where they're placed on the screen, where your chat channels and that are placed on the screen, where you've got the party, all the elements of the UI are locked and saved as a layout file. And then you can load it up again by doing /UI space layout space load. So for example, for me, I use that a lot because I've got, as part of my job, I've got the live stream computer, I've got my computer at my desk, I've got my computer at home, I've got like a laptop, I've got various things. So I'm constantly like loading up different UI elements in that based on what I need to do. So I've got a home, I've got a work, I've got a stream room, I've got a cleric, I've got a fighter, I've got rogue. Depending on what I wanted, I've got like a, frankly, Wizards of the Coast walkthrough. I've got a, things like that for various things that I need to set out. And that stuff is saved on whatever computer you save it to. So like when you do UI layout save, it'll be saved in your documents, Dungeons and Dragons, and then UI folder. So basically the same folder that you keep your screenshots by default. There's a subfolder called UI and then layouts. And then all the various layouts that you've saved will be in there. They're really tiny files and they're very, very portable. They're only like 14 kilobytes or so. So you can drop it into Dropbox, you can email it to yourself, however you want to do it, so that you can, if like when I'm going from home to work and that, I don't need to worry about messing with the hotbars. If I need to, because I'm sometimes often reinstalling, like, say, internal development servers and things like that, and I don't necessarily want to mess with all the UI elements and where every button is, what kind of resolution I've got. All this other stuff is saved in the layout there. So you can just boom, pop, call it up, and you're good to go. And it really, once you kind of use it regularly, I think you'll find that it's extremely valuable, particularly if you play this game on more than one computer.
It's also helpful for TRing.
Yep,
and
that
I have usually before I TR, I rewrite the save file I have for each character, and then I also just have a basic one. I should call base or basic or something like that. So if I make a new character, it's just boom, throw it all where I want it. Makes it really easy. The things I think it doesn't change which side your buff icons are on, because now the default is justified to the left, and a lot of particularly with older players, when we started playing the game, it was all justified to the right. And to be honest, I don't even remember why they changed that. But the outcry was rather amusing.
I know.
So
right?
there's actually in the UI options, there's a check mark that you can unclick that says justify to left screen. I can't remember if there's actually a network icon, which I find is actually pretty helpful to have. And I throw it in the top left, so it's out of the way. But if I need to look, I can look up there, which can be helpful to know that, because if it's red, you're probably not experiencing lag. It's probably more on your end. Whereas if it's green, then okay, now you know it's like maybe it's more likely lag, that kind of stuff. So you kind of keep an eye on that.
Yeah, but a lot of people, I don't know if they know that they can do that layout thing, but man, does it save you a lot of time.
It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Now, if they could figure out a way that it saved everything that went on your hotbars, that would be
I know, right?
That would be heaven.
Yeah.
Unlikely, but now if you log on a character on different servers, that's that stuff's still going to be there when you load in. It's just that like if you play on a different size screen, it might all be really jumbled or something like that. So you can kind of play with that there too. One last thing on hotbars I want to mention is for my trappers, I usually have you got the search, disable, open lock, and then right underneath them, what I do is I put my search, disable, open lock items. So I don't have to figure out where in this clump of gear which one is those items. I can just find them there. And then nowadays, because I have insightful items, they go on the next row down.
Yeah.
It's just kind of even if I'm normally wearing it, I still put it there. Because then I look there and I'm like, oh, hey, that's my haggle item, not my disable item. I should switch those before I try and disable this trap. Fun thing to do that. We mentioned it briefly in passing. Let's talk about the buff and debuff icons. Because there's some information there that I think a lot of people really don't even know that they can get. Or they know and they just don't bother them. But so you got your buff part. And I say, I justify everything to the right. But that's mostly because that's how I started playing the game. When they moved it to the left, it didn't work because I had stuff in the way over there. That's where my map is and stuff like that. So if you don't know, if you hover over any of those icons, it will give you more information. Now you should probably start recognizing a lot of these icons, but the ones that I think are really important to do is the debuff ones. And you'll start recognizing those too, but say you're running Assault on the Slave Lords, and you get covered in honey and bees, and you don't know how to get rid of them. If you mouse over those icons, it will tell you how to get rid of them. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, it tells you. Okay, it doesn't like outright tell you, but it's like 90% of the way telling you how to get rid of them.
Yeah.
It's also true of another place I found this to be helpful is Warning Mark of Death. And I jumped in the water and then moused over the icon, and it tells you what it's doing to you. I think what it says is it takes like 20% of your maximum health or a fifth of your maximum health or something to that effect. Same with the Mark of Death symbol. It does the same thing there. So you can actually glean a lot more information about what's happening if you look at those. Follow Truth is another good place with the debuffs that they put on you. So if you didn't know that, that's there for you, and you can find that out.
One tip I have regarding that is sometimes, things get hectic and you don't really have time to read about the debuffs and all that in the middle of combat. But if you hover over and then the screen pops up to explain it, you can Control P to take a screenshot, and then after combat or after the play session, you can kind of go back and go more into detail as to what exactly it's telling you. That way you don't have to do it on the fly if you need to.
Or you can also do it in video. If you're doing a video, go back and look at the video and pause it at that point. So you don't have to worry about hitting the Control P either. So,
True.
But yeah, so it's good to know, and it's not just for debuffs. I mean, that's usually what you need to figure out what it is, because a buff you like, so hey. So there you go.
That's also kind of handy. It's not really in the UI, so I don't know if it really applies. But like if you're fighting a boss and you're like, if you're a bard and you cast Dirge on him or something, you can hover over the debuff, examine him,
exactly.
hover over the debuff, and it will tell you, how much longer it's going to be on there, what exactly it's doing, stuff like that.
Or other players.
And it will tell you like what buffs champions have. That's not really UI though, so.
It kind of is. I think it's worth talking about. You can lock open examine windows, which can be a handy thing. I've done that on bosses a lot of times. Recently, the place I tend to do it is Hound of Zoriat, because if I'm on like a rogue, you can assassin trick the mom. You can assassin trick Zizzy, which reduces her fortification, which allows the dogs to do more damage. And by locking open the window, I can see when that graphic fades away, and I know to re-up it. I've done similar things like that at various points of time with Lord of Blades and fortification debuffs, even with just dots, wanting to know when the dot's going to run out. So you can do stuff like that. Or your party member, maybe you've got a buff you want to keep an eye on when their buff's going to run out, or if they die and they have a death timer, you can examine them, lock it open, and watch their countdown timer go. So those are all options that you can do in that regards.
Yeah, the locking the examine windows is really nice too if you're debating between, two or more pieces of gear and you're not sure which one's going to be better. I've actually been doing that a lot lately. Pull them up, lock the window, pull the next one up, examine them side by side.
It's another great way to do it, to use that option. Let's see. Other stuff we should talk about. I wanted to talk a little bit about the floating numbers. And the reason I want to talk about this is actually another thing I learned from watching someone else play. You can change the color of what you see. Now, I'll preface this by saying I don't really recommend that you change much here. Because you'll find that a lot of players will say, oh, it's a red named or a purple named monster. You can change those colors. It may not be the best thing for you, because then you might forget what they're talking about. But if you have issues with color blindness or something like that, that might be really helpful for you. The other thing I would say is I think I've actually changed one or two of the guild level colors because I didn't like the color that it was. I can't remember now, though. But I'm pretty sure you can do that. I also tend to change my user chat colors. I change them to all to a similar but still different enough that I can differentiate which chat channel it is, pink, so that they stand out. I don't like the white text. I know user 4 defaults to white, which doesn't work for me. I don't remember what the other ones default to, if it's white or something else. But I changed those so I can change them. But the other thing that I picked up from someone else is you can actually change the kill damage. And I picked blue. He actually picked pink. I liked blue better. But so when I kill something, the damage actually comes out as blue, which is it's just a better indicator that, oh, hey, I killed it. It stands out a little bit more than just a little skull icon. So,
I actually changed the color on the orange. I've not on all my tunes. I haven't gotten around to it, but I've tried to make it a little bit lighter because on my screen the orange and the red look so similar.
And that's another good reason
really
to
hard
change
to
it.
tell
Yeah.
sometimes, so I'm fighting an orange named or a red name.
And that's a perfect example of why you might want to change it. I just don't recommend that you really go too crazy with changing it because you might lose that reference with other people. So just kind of be aware of that if you do change it. So Agamort is saying that he changed his killing hit to blood red. Really, the only reason I didn't choose red, I mean, red's a great color for killing. I love it. It's red names are also kind of around, so I felt that blue was a unique enough color at the time that it still holds true. It still stands. So I don't have too much issues with that. Okay. Let's see. Anyone want to say anything about maps? I think you're muted.
Oh, you mean like key mapping?
Well, no, like the actual map. I mean, we can talk about key mapping too. But I'm thinking like the use of the actual map. You may not know, just for the new players, if you open your map up and you click on something, it'll actually give you an arrow to go there. That can be helpful.
There you go.
But I don't know that there's necessarily anything else for map. The blue arrows on your map, that's your party members. That can be useful.
You can grab a corner of the side of the map and drag it and make it bigger, which comes in really handy in big dungeons, or if your party's like really far away.
Sure. You want to talk about key mapping?
Well, I could talk about a few things here. This is, I guess, kind of leading into it. This is something that came relatively recently, but there is some ability to make, say, the text above people's heads larger or smaller. So if you have a particularly large or wide, high-resolution monitor, you may want to increase the floating text size. That'll be in the UI settings of the options panel. It defaults at 100%. It'll go down, so if you're on a low resolution screen, you can make it much smaller. If you're on a higher resolution screen, you can increase the size of it. You can also change the opacity of it if you want to. But that's something, because I know, particularly as we go into, like, say, 4K resolutions and, 50-inch monitors and that, you may well find yourself wanting to increase the text size of, like, say, NPC text. Now, unfortunately, we haven't yet been able to bring that tech to bear for, say, the chat channels and some of the other elements, but at least for the NPC stuff, you can do that. There are a couple other UI settings that are worth talking about. I don't know if you want to go into that too much, but probably one of the first ones you should know is don't show hints. That's in the UI settings. A lot of people click that off, but not everyone knows it. But once you learn the game, you really don't need to worry about that stuff. The other one is don't show campaign system objectives. It's called the Go system or the campaign system, and that's the one that's like, take part in the festival, go talk to Elminster. If you are sort of beyond the point that in your gameplay that you kind of want that information to sort of help guide you, you can turn that off, and that'll give you some of your real estate, your screen real estate back. Otherwise, you can even click off show overhead names and things like that if you really want to, although I wouldn't recommend it. And then you can also, if you want to, have health bars above the heads. I know some other MMOs sort of do this by default, but in DDO you have to opt into it. And you can do that both for party members and monsters if you want to. You can have the percentage of health be percentage-based rather than sort of number-based if you want to do that. That's kind of a useful thing to have as well. And then, you can toggle whether or not you show up in the party list, whether you have your own little separate thing like that. So there are different font settings and like you said, combat dice settings, things like that. So there's some various things you can go to in the UI settings. There's a lot of stuff there which can be somewhat a lot of work to sort of go through, but it's worth considering, particularly if you want to sort of change some of these things to suit your particular play style. And there is a search bar. Yeah. So I don't know how many people use it, but it does exist.
There was a point in the game where one of the things I really liked about your personal life bar was there was an auto attack button on it. And they took that away.
Oh yeah, there we go. Click and hold to auto attack is probably something you're going to want to change. Now this is in the gameplay settings, which is underneath the UI settings. There's a few things that are worth pointing out here. The first one is quest end rewards based on class.
Mm-hmm.
So by default, it's checked on, and that means that if you're a fighter, you're largely going to get fighter type items in your end reward list. If you're a druid, you're largely going to get druid type items, you know. But we live in an age of multi-classing and things like that, so a lot of people prefer to check that off, in which case you just get any old thing. It doesn't care what class you are anymore. I tend to keep it on when I'm pure class and playing sort of that class sort of traditionally, and then I click it off for just about everything else.
I usually only use that if it's a new character and I need some gear, like at lower levels. But otherwise, I just let come what may, kind of a thing.
Yep.
So.
I had more to say in the chat, and I know this because I do it on even for streaming. You can change the chat box text size, and I do that for streaming, not knowing what size monitor everybody's gonna have. Because I think even's just like I don't know what size. I'm thinking off the top of my head 18, but it could be 14. I think it defaults to 10. But yeah, you can definitely make your chat size text bigger or smaller.
Yeah, there you go. Chat font. I actually didn't. I guess I haven't really played around with that, but what do you know?
Click and hold to attack. I want to go back to that really quick because I remember that's one of those other things that when I learned you could do is like revolution my playstyle. If you can imagine how long I was sitting there clicking for every attack for so long. I don't remember how long I was doing it, but it's probably embarrassingly too long before I realized that, oh, I can hold. And it attacks continuously. This is amazing. My fingers far less sore.
When I was new, I didn't know that there was push to talk, so I just had voice on all the time, which I'm sure annoyed my party mates enough. And yeah, I didn't know I didn't know about auto attack. So I would just sit there frantically clicking when I wanted to attack stuff. And of course, everybody could hear my mouse clicking. And I'm still playing 6 years later. It's amazing.
I will say, so as we run this out, let's do a quick round the table. Maybe any last tricks or you might want to say what kind of UI things. I will say I'm a huge fan of push to talk. I actually believe that everyone should be on push to talk unless they have a really good reason not to. Or maybe if you have some really cool technology that you can install on your computer, I think you can get it to work. But like a voice gate or something like that. A gate is where a certain amount of volume opens it automatically. That's just a good rule of thumb. I know of some rather embarrassing moments from other people that their mic was left on. And when I say embarrassing, I mean romantic moments. So that was pretty embarrassing for that person. I don't actually know. I don't remember who specifically it was, but it was kind of one of those stories I heard from someone else. But, push to talk is great. I just said go to push to talk. The other thing that I learned, if you move the one of the things you can do for your hotkeys and changing hotkeys, I move my auto run to K instead of R because R is closer to my other fingers, and I auto ran myself out of on 6 once by accident.
I should really do that. Yeah.
It's still close enough that I can still hit it easily, but I have to think that's the same reason why I put like the teleporty stuff on a back hotbar so I can't actually click it. So.
Yeah, I've probably overshared the story of my auto run fail in Abbott, so I won't go there again.
Anyone else
I've got two.
Go for it.
Yeah, I've got two things. At the bottom of the options panel, you'll see a section called key mapping. Now that allows you to change, as you say, what button controls what. And I'm not going to get into that because people can really just kind of figure that out on their own. But underneath the key mapping tab, you'll see 3 options for the mouse. By default, right mouse button steers, left mouse button attacks. You can change it to what's called FPS style. That's where mouse look is on by default. and then you'll click to get out of mouse look mode. Some people prefer that. And then classic is the reverse, where the right mouse button is used to attack and the left mouse button is used to sort of look and steer. That's the way DDO was when it actually debuted in 2006. And so it still is an option there. But those are some good options to know in case you just don't know they exist. And there's one other thing, and this goes into the advanced settings, and I'm going to give you guys a warning here that you can cause trouble for yourself if you're not careful. So please, don't just start messing with this and then call support and say, Cordovan told me to do it. But in your Dungeons & Dragons Online folder in My Documents, there is a file called User Preferences. That contains all of your configuration settings in a nice text file format. So you can open it up in Notepad and play around with things. Now, you can crash your client. You can make it so the game doesn't start. You can cause yourself all sorts of problems. But it also allows you to sort of, if you particularly have some unusual UI layout settings and you want to preserve that, again, between computers, similar to the layout files, you can do that. For example, play intro movie equals true, play intro movie equals false if you want it to play on startup. You can do things like set it by default to do a different window resolution, a windowed resolution. Set whether by default it's full screen or windowed mode. You can set the settings for your sound, ambient volume, DM text volume, all the sliders there. You can pre-program that stuff, and it's saved in the user preferences file. There's also key mapping things, and like I say, all sorts of things that you can do. It specifies where your load screens are, things like that. It has the default usernames that show up in your launcher, all sorts of things that, like I said, can cause you some trouble, but it's also very convenient once you know how to use it. And that, too, is a very small file that's portable, so you can move it between computer to computer. So let's say, for example, that you just want to always have it 1920 by 1080 with the windowed resolution and not play in the movie and all that sort of thing. You can set this stuff in user preferences and then port it to any computer that you want to.
You can also, if you're going to go in there and edit stuff, consider making a copy before you do that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I was just going to say that. Make a copy and name it, put a dot back on the end of it, and then mess with a copy, don't mess with the original.
But it also lets you set things like all the, for the various sub-graphic settings, whether you want it to be low, medium, high, ultra high, whatever. So you don't have to go through that every time you're setting up your computer if you don't want to.
It's a good tip. I think I might actually do that. Every once in a while, my computer does something weird and I have to reset the graphic settings. It's a little annoying. Right, Evennote, anything else you want to mention here before we move on?
Like I said, my UI is really pretty much a mess, but I would say, like you said, stuff like teleport, even dimension door, even though that's not quite the same, anything that could potentially cause your party or yourself to move somewhere else when you don't want to, anything that could be bad if done at the wrong time, don't put that anywhere near stuff you use a lot. And also, one thing that I really like having multiple hotbars for, if you've got a character that runs in different destinies at different times, if you set up a hotbar or two for each destiny, and then you can just, it's that little up and down arrow that, say you've got a cleric that sometimes runs an Exalted Angel, sometimes in Divine Crusader, set up one hotbar with Exalted Angel stuff, another one with Divine Crusader, and have those be, 20, where you can go back and forth between them just using the little arrows, so you don't have to close them down.
Bars, yeah.
If you have enough hotbars. And yeah, I've never used all 20, so yeah, you've definitely got me beat on that one.
At one point, my artificer was using all 20, and I counted, and he had 5 open spaces.
You're making me want to delete my arty.
5.
Nice.
He's no longer there, but I resolved to get rid of some stuff. Do you want to, really quickly, because it was mentioned in the chat room, first of all, thank you for instituting volume control. That's great. If you are setting up your volume, just a really quick note on that, voice volume is what is how you hear other people. Voice gain is your input volume when you're setting that up. There's also a test that you can do there. Just a tip, if you like your ears, put headphones on first before you do that if you're using speakers. There's this thing called feedback that can happen. It's not very pretty. And on that note, if you're one of those people that is streaming these days, it's usually if you're streaming, use headphones. If you're really paying attention here, you'll notice I'm actually wearing 2 sets of headphones because one of these is actually going to my microphone's end, so I can hear myself because it bothers me if I can't. And the other one is actually coming from my computer, so I hear both. It takes a little getting used to hear one out of each ear, but you kind of get used to it. And also, if you have your Twitch channel open, make sure that you mute that, or it really gets nasty. Or just don't show the video.
That's actually a good point. Some folks, in the audio settings of the options panel, there is a separate section for sound playback and voice playback. So you can have the voice playback just go to headphones and the sound playback go to your speakers.
Yeah, that works too. But my suggestion is if you're going to stream, do it on headphones. Just make sure everything's going through headphones. It far less likely to have an issue. And don't have your volume turned on your one that you're streaming. With that, I think we can.
And if for some reason you can't use push to talk, for the love of God, use headphones, please, please, please. The feedback, I mean, seriously, migraine.
We've all heard that person. As an audio person, I will tell you, I will turn, especially with the individual volume control now, I turn them off almost right away if they're just like that. I used to squelch them and then forget to unsquelch them afterwards. But, so there's that stuff. All right, I think we talk about game news, yeah?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about game news, because there's some new information, some fun information, as it were. So we'll start with, there's another pass for Update 34 on the Mania. Jerry probably cannot confirm or deny, but a betting man might think that it's coming out next week, provided that nothing broke horribly.
Absolutely. No, I can confirm that. That's our plan. I mean, again, yes, we don't yet have a release candidate build. My understanding is we're actually taking Sunday night's build because we have some devs coming in this weekend to just kind of do some final polish on Reaper difficulty and a few other things. So assuming Sunday night's build checks out on, let's see, we'll get build overnight Sunday into Monday. It'll get checked probably Monday, Tuesday, stage Tuesday evening. So it could be as soon as, say, Wednesday, February 1st, but we'll kind of see what happens there. If the build doesn't compile correctly, then that pushes it off by another 24 hours or so. But, yeah, the goal is to get it out this next week.
Some of the new stuff, or at least stuff that I didn't recognize before, now, from the least notes that I want to mention, there will be much weeping and gnashing of teeth on this one. Death effects, including Warlock feet hurl through hell in the spell Trap the Soul, now properly blocked by death wards. I'm going to assume that at least means the crystal in Part 2 of Legendary Shroud.
Yep.
These effects will continue to work on undead or monsters who are only protected by their own racial traits, genius, or other effects, but will specifically block by Death Ward effects. Additionally, Hurl Through Hell now has a spell point cost of 20 spell points, which I think is up, right?
Yeah, it didn't have a spell point cost earlier.
It didn't have a spell point cost.
Yeah, it was a 25-second insta-kill on just about everything in the game without any spell point cost, so,
I think that was a long time in coming. It'll be interesting to see how... I'm sure there will be outcry along the lines of when the Stormreaver from Fall of Truth got his special ability back. Of, oh my gosh, how do we complete Part 2 of the Shroud? You can do it. It'll be okay. Take a breath. You got this. Yeah, so that... And there's a little bit of a differentiation of Death Ward, Death Block. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's not... And I can't... it's a little confusing even for me to remember off the top of my head, but... There's a little bit of a difference between the two, so just kind of keep that in mind. See, Draconic Incarnation's Breath Weapon attacks now count as evocation spells and get full meta magic feats, which that means more damage, I think. So, yeehaw.
My water savannah's going, yay! I might actually kill something once in a while.
I think everyone's thinking, like, that's going to be better. Cool. Also, the attacks no longer require hard targeting, which is it's always annoying when something requires hard targeting that you don't want it to. Let's see. Also, they adjusted some lighting issues in what goes up that could cause overly bright purple skies. Thank you.
Now I can't take too much credit for this, but I can say that there was a picture on the forums not that long ago of just this super bright purple screen, and I might have passed it to a couple of devs until they promised me they were going to finally do something about it. So it looks like someone just was able to say, all right, fine, I'll just work a little bit on my own time and get this sucker done. So that's what ended up happening there. But it's been a long time coming, and we do apologize for that. Now this is just what goes up. Yeah, I know, right? This is just in what goes up, though. It isn't. We haven't yet corrected Wayloon. Which I know some.
I was just going to say, should I run into Wayloon and take a bunch of pictures of the Lagmo Bismol and you can pass them off to the devs, and maybe they can fix that.
What was that screenshot email again?
Right. Speaking of nerfs, though, there is actually one thing coming that's I don't think made it into the notes because it was actually done the day of the Lamania push, so it's not in the Lamania build. And we are going to be changing Eternal Defender to once again properly use Turn Undead and Lay on Hands. Right now, those two things say they take charges, but don't, and that kind of allows people to. If for some reason you haven't invested in, say, a lot of Turn Undeads or whatever, to just kind of sort of never die, and that's something that we're going to be fixing here in Update 34 as well.
Yeah,
I'm so celebrating that, so I don't have to listen to it. I was going to say a bad word, but stuff about it anymore. And by the way, it does not use Lay on Hands. It is supposed to take Turn Undeads, and as long as you have, like Even's got 24 undead, so as long as she doesn't use more than 12 Eternal Defenders, which you've run with her, it almost never goes off.
What else would you use them for?
Yeah. And also, if you've actually built for something like that, your luck is going to run out. Yeah, that's not something, basically it gives you a heal if you're getting kept. And you should not be relying on that to stay alive. If you are, you're dead a lot.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, I think it does use Lay on Hands, though, for the Paladin version. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, it does. It's still Turn Undead for Paladin.
Okay.
Let's see. We got some new information about Reaper, specifically the rewards. Evennote, are you sitting down?
I know there are going to be 4 new pets. They have been added to my guide to cosmetic pets. The pictures are a little so because I kind of pulled them off screenshots of the live stream from the other day. But yes, there are going to be Reaper pets. That's going to bump me up to 101.
Nice.
No, I don't
living
need
and
a
breathing
program
Reaper
at all.
So Reaper vendors are available in the Hall of Heroes. They sell creature companions in addition to potions that grant special cosmetic feats. Wings seem to be. I've seen a few people mention. Oh, hey, wings. That's fun. So that seems to be a thing. You can turn. So you complete Reaper difficulty. You get Reaper XP. That gets turned in for survival points, which can then be spent in Reaper trees as well as getting those cosmetics. So I assume you actually have to spend your XP to get those cosmetics and stuff. It's not just.
No. What happens is at certain Reaper levels, like I think it's 30, 60, 90, something like that, the vendors will unlock and allow you to purchase with plat these potions. And the reason we went through this somewhat unusual method of doing it is that allows us to not take up other cosmetic slots, like say the head or armor slot for the wings. And it also solves a little bit of a problem where on a true reincarnation, your feats are reset, including these feats, because the potion grants the feat and the TR takes it away when you reincarnate. So you will have to go to the vendors and just buy the potions and chug them again after a true reincarnation. But the plat cost is relatively low, and Reaper levels, your Reaper XP is preserved. So it's going to be fairly trivial. But that's sort of why we did it through the convoluted method we did, is to both solve the true reincarnation issue while also letting it be an extra cosmetic that doesn't interfere with the other cosmetic slots.
Clever. We got to look at the 3 trees. I'm not going to go through them like line by line. There's 3 trees. The first one is weapons, which mostly adds +1 hits to damage, so melee power. There's some strength, dexterity, and some other stuff. While you're in, a lot of it's only while you're in Reaper mode. The core stuff actually does give you stuff while you're not in Reaper mode. Some of it's already changed, specifically the tactical DC stuff. Which I don't know if it's going to be. I don't think they've said if they're going to replace something with it, but it's going to go away. That's the weapons tree. There's a spells tree, which gives you spell points and spell power, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma while you're in Reaper difficulty. Some of that stuff. And then there's a tank tree, which is mostly hit points and PRR and dodge and that kind of stuff. My constitution as well.
So just to reiterate, the cores apply outside of Reaper, but everything else is Reaper difficulty only.
And the descriptions actually say while in Reaper difficulty, so you can easily differentiate between the two. There'll be similar. It can be reset similar the way enhancement trees are reset. I think I remember seeing something that Tier 5 was no longer locked out. A lockout, or I'm not sure if I remember that correctly. But presumably you can spend points in different trees, across different trees. I don't know that you have to select just one.
No, correct. Yeah, right. I mean, I think there is a maximum number of points you can get, so I don't think you're going to be able to cap out all 3 trees. But yes.
If you're capping out all 3 trees, I am curious as to your build.
Yeah, right.
Very interesting. But I guess everyone could kind of use a lot of that stuff. But Coco Majabo mentions stuff on the forums. A complete redesign is probably pretty unlikely. Trees are meant as an incentive for those who enjoy playing content on Reaper to play on Reaper, despite the reduced completion times, because it makes it easier to do. While at the same time not being large or, quote, cool enough that they would simply not enjoy playing content on Reaper and forced into that difficulty. That was kind of a big design thing, is they don't want people to feel forced into Reaper, which is why a lot of the rewards are what they are.
It's very tricky. I mean, it's very tricky to try to... We didn't want Reaper to be the new elite. We didn't want a bunch of people who didn't want to run Reaper to feel like they were, quote, forced to run Reaper. But at the same time, there are a few comments like say on the forums, it's like, it should just be cosmetics only. Or it should have no rewards and just be for challenge. But the reality is it would not justify the development time because people would run it for a little bit and then never run it again.
I do like a lot of the rewards, like the idea of getting more likely to get named loot and stuff like that. And I think the trees look. I was kind of hoping for a little more flavor along the lines of kind of more traditional enhancement trees, because they have a lot more stuff. And these trees are somewhat bland in that what they offer is pretty generic, like melee power, melee range power, spell power. Not to say there isn't some fun stuff, but that stuff's still useful. So it's not like that's not a bad reward or anything like that.
Yeah, other than the reason these trees exist is really just due to math and statistics. When you look at, say, Reaper 10 skull difficulty and all that sort of thing, if you really want to invest and try to be competitive, you're going to need these extra bonuses. That's sort of the way they were designed.
Coco, something that the other things Coco said was things like, they're still taking feedback. They welcome feedback on these trees. I assume just like any other enhancement tree, there might be changes made along the way. Although, one of the things about these being fairly bland is that they shouldn't really require too much maintenance as things go on. The increases in power available within the Reaper trees and gear are far, far outstripped by the increased challenge that Reaper presents over Elite. So the amount of power being introduced in this update is far lower than the amount of challenge being introduced. That's cool. So also it's not, he did mention, they're not listing the exact formulas because again they want Reaper to be an exploratory process of learning and which does add more challenge because you have to figure a lot of stuff out as opposed to being able to be in this intellectual theoretical box and figure it out, right? But he did say that it's not a simple formula of monsters gets +1 save for every skull or something like that. So, let's see. He also said specifically the DCs that can be gained from the Reaper tree, very specifically, do not match what the monsters within Reaper mode are gaining in order to challenge players more effectively. So there you go. Severlin had a lot of information. There was a lot of feedback. So when the release was released, it said that you could only run Reaper mode if you were 2 levels higher than the quest, which brought a lot of feedback of kind of negative feedback, and people were very concerned about that being too limiting for the system, and what would you wouldn't really be able to run enough stuff, particularly at cap, those kind of concerns. So Severlin put in some comments. So some things he said, keep in mind that everything in the trees outside the cores only work in Reaper. The trees should could still use some tweaking. To clarify, Reaper mode should be locking characters out of content whose character level, at the time it was 3 levels. We'll talk about that a little bit later. They had good feedback that Reaper needed a level lockout, so that's one of the reasons they started with looking at that. They're all concerned that farming Reaper bonuses for lower level gear defeats the purpose of the system. They also don't want players jumping into Reaper without checking the XP panel and getting no Reaper XP because they're over level. This is a particular concern since they currently wouldn't see that until they defeat at least 10 enemies, which could be challenging. Although I would say that I think there's enough of a precedent that if you go into something over level, you're not going to get as many rewards. So there's at least that going on. Lastly, it's easier to restrict Reaper mode to prevent potential issues, see how it plays, and relax those restrictions. Reaper mode is not designed to replace or act as an endgame system. It's there to provide challenge for those who want it, regardless of their level. Of course, part of the design is intentionally provides endgame players with extra challenge for extra rewards. But the Reaper design is not the answer to the endgame question, which is a good thing to keep in mind. They are continually, and have for a number of updates, been extending the endgame with cap-level dungeons. Yes, Reaper mode can make that even more compelling for very powerful builds, but it isn't designed to suddenly provide an endgame. Their endgame strategy is to add content releases, and they have another legendary raid coming for the next update, for example, and they plan to extend the endgame even further with Ravenloft, with more than 10 dungeons, 2 raids, and the sentient weapon system. We expect Ravenloft to add a lot of endgame content.
If I'm not mistaken, I think this is the only place that he's actually gotten into numbers on Ravenloft.
I thought maybe.
Does the producers litter have it? I don't think so.
I feel like I've seen, or he's talked about it, but I'm not sure. I think this is definitely the first time he said sentient weapons in Ravenloft, and tied those two together.
2 raids.
So, yeah. Let's see. They will continue to add new rewards to the game. Many provide opportunities for extra player power. As we add new ways to obtain power, we will add more content to challenge players. It's a design cadence. More difficulty means more reward. While we agree that we want balanced gameplay and a consistent sense of cost versus power, avoiding power creep is not really part of our long-term design goals. Design creep, that's okay, right? This is a little off topic, but I'll read it because it's in my notes here. The Players' Council is in transition, but the discussion of Reaper mode and its iteration of its features already moved into the public arena. That's why they weren't kind of talking about it there. In other words, don't blame the Players' Council for iteration as they develop Reaper mode. That's fair. They have two so design philosophy is splitting the player base. Sev says they have 2 competing desires. One is to provide a range of difficulties so everyone can find their niche. 2, funnel players into a limited set of difficulties so players are more likely to play with each other. Good luck. How's that going?
That's
a trick.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with the whole design with Reaper of incentivizing people to play it but not make them feel like they have to play it, right? These are both desirable goals and they conflict. We chose the first as our priority because we'd rather give players more choices and let them negotiate amongst themselves the most comfortable difficulty setting, rather than providing a limited set of difficulties and forcing players into accepting a less fun setting, so more players end up posting compatible groups. It's a tough decision, but at the end they believe the majority of players are mature enough to decide amongst themselves the difficulty that is most fun for them. Sev thinks we're mature. So, Some other things he said. No system would be able to auto-level existing content to be balanced for max-level characters without reworking, i.e. epifying that old content.
That comes from someone saying, well, can't we just sort of make every Reaper difficulty quest level 30, or couldn't we, say, have the challenge tech just apply to every dungeon in the game?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is no. It's a manual process to do that kind of work and is way outside of the scope of our ability to do for Reaper difficulty here.
I'm going to skip kind of part of this, what he said, but he did say when they have done analysis in the past on what people were running, the player behavior was that a small amount of people would mess with something like something over level at first, and then almost no one would engage the content. People who played content for absolutely no reward were far and few between. So we delayed Reaper and have a situation where players can start content that has no rewards. He's not sure the combination is the best way to spend the dev resources. They could increase... let's skip that. So one of the things is there's a hard cap or a hard differentiation where so epic characters can't run heroic quests on Reaper.
Yep.
What Sev said to that is basically it's a tough design, but those quests are significantly easier to complete for characters with epic destinies. They don't want the opposite problem where players feel compelled to park at 20 and efficiently grind Reaper XP from lower level content. So we'll just park at 19. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a difference there because you don't get the epic destinies. That's really kind of that was the key thing there. Let's see. And at the time, he listed how many quests you could run at level 30 under the 2 level thing. It was a funny list because he had a few things in there twice, but I was actually surprised. It was a longer list than I was expecting personally. I kind of tried to count through it, and I came up with around 30-ish quests, which isn't too bad. And you're kind of always adding more. That's really kind of where the new quests are kind of falling anyways. They read through a lot of so what happened? They read through a lot of the player feedback. They decided to increase the lockout range to +6. Reaper XP will drop for groups that are over level. They are planning to keep the hard lock out for epic characters and heroic content, which I think makes sense. But can I just say thanks? +6, I think, is much better. It's more, especially if you're not getting the Reaper XP, but maybe you want to farm something for gear. I think that's great.
I mean, I think what that means is, say, a level 19 character will be able to run a level 13 quest on Reaper.
And okay.
That does remove some of the challenge. But ultimately, it's going to come down to, in terms of the bragging rights, the community will find its own, what counts and what doesn't. And we ultimately just felt like we needed to respond to that feedback. We were thinking we'd go more restrictive to start with and then loosen it up as we sort of got a sense of how it was going to go. But at this point, we spent a lot of time, frankly, in the pit this week discussing the topic, just like the people in the forums did. What should it be? Pros and cons, what are the design goals, and how does either not, like removing the level cap altogether, affect those design goals and things like that. So we didn't want to remove the level cap altogether. But what we ended up doing is saying, well, how far can we have this level cap and still make it so that people don't just treat Reaper difficulty as something you ignore until a certain level, for example. And we think we found the right mix of that, but we'll see what happens.
It's encouraging to me that, one, it didn't appear to be too hard of a fix to make it a limiting, like the difficulty of implementation was a limiting factor. So it sounds like there can be some balance and give and take and easy changes later. So I think that's good. And I think that the idea that you can run, if you want Reaper XP, you need to be in a tighter level range. I mean, that's how the game's always worked. Now, we've been a little spoiled once you get to Epics where they took out the power level aspect of things. But there's still, and I think he actually pulls out the overlevel penalty as well in Epics, but I mean that still exists in Heroics. It's always existed in Heroics, so it's not like this is unprecedented to have your XP drop if you're running it over level. But if you want to run something, maybe you're more interested in the gear, it gives you a little bit of a better option. Do you know if seals and shards are more likely to drop on Reaper?
Yes. Uh,
Yes, they
anything
are.
that's
Yes,
going
you
to be,
know.
yes, they are going to drop somewhat more frequently. I think it's largely there's some kind of multiplier that goes into place based on the skull level to the percentage of the named item drop. So anything that's under a percentage like that, yeah, is going to have a higher chance to drop. Now, you know, 500% of 0.001 is pretty small, but you know what I mean, right? Yeah.
Sure. Just
But
give.
yes, it is going to be better.
I feel like you just gave me the carrot that I might actually get an epic ring of spells throwing one day, and then just like held it out there just long enough before you threw it away.
No, no, it's true. It will have a chance, but also that was one of the big key reasons about this level gating is we didn't want to create a situation where someone just sat at level 30, parked, and got all the Mythic and Reaper gear for every character they'd ever want to TR, and then just trivialize Reaper difficulty. You know, Reaper difficulty is supposed to be an extreme challenge, and so ultimately, whatever we do, we need to guide it toward the point that this is not something that everyone's going to beat. This is not something that is intended to be like, well, you know, yes, I do 10 skull. It's like, no, this isn't necessarily something that everyone's going to be able to do, and that's the point. So it's been tough. It's been, like I say, we had a lot of discussions. I mean, God, we probably spent 4.5, 5 hours in meetings this week talking about the Reaper difficulty and level cap and where we wanted it and all that sort of thing. But ultimately, I think we came down to a place that hopefully the community and us will find acceptable.
I do really like the idea that because everyone's got like that one thing. Drac has like 20, but everyone has like that one thing they've been trying to find and they never really get out of the RNG. So having a little bit more of a range, even if you're not getting it Reaper XP, it's like, by golly, I'm getting this thing, come hell or high water. Get a little bit higher level and let you kind of farm stuff like that. So, and there's look, there's a time sink there, so there's that too. So, all right, getting off Reaper mode. Evennote, anything else you want to say about Reaper before we move on?
I mean, they had me at 4 new cosmetic pets.
How do you feel about the cosmetic wings?
Oh, I am nearly as excited about the wings and eyes as I am about the pets, especially since they are feet, so they're not going to interfere with anything cosmetic you already have equipped. I think they look awesome. Even as a green-purple dragon knight, so she's definitely going to want green wings and green eyes.
Yeah, there you go.
And a nice little green Reaper pet.
Let me actually add something on the wings. So during last week's live stream, you can find it on DDO stream, the archive, if you want to. I went and showed off all the wings and eyes and pets. I accidentally, due to the way I implemented it, I did what are called run scripts rather than actually getting the items as an admin, and I was able to put more than one wing on at a time. So it could be both, like say, white and green, or red and whatever, purple, and it looked awesome. But by default, they were actually set that you could only have one toggled at a time. But after that live stream, I went to Steel Star and I was like, look how awesome this is. And so we're going to allow you to have more than one toggled on at a time, so you can kind of mix and match some colors in that too to even make it more cool looking.
I was actually wondering, and you don't need to respond to this, but like, kind of what you're talking about with the potions and doing the cosmetic slots. Hey, wait, there's a room here for maybe that's how they could implement tails or cloaks and stuff like that. So interesting to see what kind of happens here. And if you just make it so you always get it when you log in, or you can't destroy certain, like, it doesn't consume when you drink it. It makes it easy. So that could be fun. Other stuff. Okay. This year's content plans. So Severlin pretty much came. I think this is what you were thinking about earlier. He pretty much came right out and said, "This is what we're looking at for content." Specifically, he said endgame content released with Dragonborn, a raid, and 2 dungeons, which would be the anniversary set, which probably will not I'm gonna guess, since update 34 is not quite out yet, that it might not be at the end of February, but it's probably gonna be aiming for in that range.
You know, have we ever hit our anniversary patch before the anniversary? I don't know, but I know the goal is actually to try to get it out, if not late February, then at the very least very early March.
Yeah.
Most of our content team has actually been working on the dungeons and the raid for several weeks now.
I kind of got the impression
busy
that
with other things, but yeah.
I kind of got the impression that Severlin, who's kind of seems to be the main guy in Reaper, is the one who's still working on update 34, and everyone else has already moved on.
Yeah, him, Steel Star, Torque helped a little bit, Nobob helped a little bit, some others, but a lot of the Quest folks have been working on update 35, the anniversary patch, for a couple of weeks now.
Getting back to it, so Dragonborn, a raid, 2 dungeons. Stonelands, a dungeon pack. He didn't really say how many that is, but it's usually like
I think it
3
depends.
to 5. But
yeah,
kind of a guess.
Yeah, I think the goal is 5, but we'll see what we end up with.
Halloween is festival content, which I just kind of read as more night revels, and maybe the Mimic Hunt. And then Ravenloft is 10 plus dungeons and 2 raids. So I mean, in 1 year we're looking at 3 raids, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 to 16 dungeons, maybe a little bit more. That's a lot of content. That might be more content than we've ever gotten in a year.
No, I'm going to say it's actually more than that, because you figure we're going to let me just go average. So let's say we do 12 with Ravenloft, 4 with Stonelands, and 2 with the Dragonborn. So yeah, we're looking at least I'm going to say 15 to 20 dungeons.
Yeah, sure. Severlin did say he'd like to actually have the expansion for Halloween and have content later in the year as well. I think the big question mark on that is how difficult is Mordor?
Right. This all depends on Mordor.
Does
Ravenloft
Sauron win in DDO?
Ravenloft makes so much sense for Halloween that we really want to do it, but realistically, if Mordor doesn't get released until the summer, are we going to be able to turn around a second expansion in a couple of months? I don't know. We'll see. And so it's kind of hard to say. It may end up being that Ravenloft is the last update of the year, and then we do a different Halloween patch.
Let's see. So, also that came out this week, VIPs get a gift. Hey, that's cool. I like gifts. Is this different than like a birthday gift or an anniversary gift?
Yes.
Okay. So what's coming? Starting on February 6th until March 15th, if you are VIP and log in, you will get this gift. You just have to log in once, somewhere, anywhere on DDO.
Between February 6th and March 15th.
Yeah, those dates. So make sure you do that, even if it's just on, off. What are you going to get? You will get a permanent Lioness Hireling. This will be a level 20 fighter hireling, a figurine of wondrous power. The contract never expires. It's basically like the Panther. Actually,
yes.
It sounds like it might be mostly a reskinned Panther.
Yes.
But maybe some other stuff. I don't know. But it's kind
it
of the same
it doesn't share a summon with the Panther, so you can have them both out at the same
Correct.
time. But yes, kind of behind the scenes in terms of the sort of systems behind it, it's largely a reskinned Panther.
I'm gonna blow through the FAQ. We'll link this in the show notes so you can read these if you would like. How do you get it? You have to be an active VIP and log in. Now, if you become a VIP while you're there, you might have to log out and log back in, which is usually how that kind of stuff works. If you buy something that's supposed to appear in your inventory, or not just in your inventory, but there's a couple of things that, like, when you put them in, like I think the expansion packs that they give you, like bundle goodies and stuff, you have to like log out and log in to get them. If you log in with any character, all of your characters will then be flagged to get it, which I think includes new characters, just like the Underdark expansion little cookie things that give you a bunch of stuff. So you just have to log in one character, and make sure you do that between February 6th, March 15th. Anything else we should say about that?
So we only have a few lifetime VIPs on DDO, largely contest winners. They're going to get this too. We didn't call it out specifically for DDO just because we have so few lifetime VIP players. But yeah, you're going to be covered as well. I know some people who listen to DDOcast might fall into that group. The other thing is, the reason we're doing this has to do, at least in part, I mean, the gift is nice and it helps encourage VIP subscriptions, which, help promote the health of the game and all that other kind of thing too. But part of this has to do with the transition to Standing Stone games and recurring billing. So under the old turbine, right, you could say, I'm just going month to month and then automatically get billed every month. Well, as part of this transition to Standing Stone games, we need you to opt in to say, yeah, I'm cool with that. We can't just carry over recurring billing from Turbine to Standing Stone games. And so what we need people to do, if you're VIP and you want to recurring billing, you need to opt into that. And so that's part of what this is about, is to help facilitate that process and then reward people to do it. I mean, there's several kind of things we're taking care of here with this one thing, but that's part of it. You're going to log in as a VIP and it's going to say, hey, are you cool with basically us billing you for VIP? You're going to say yes, and that's going to take care of that. Now you're still able. You don't have to do recurring billing, right? I mean, you can as some people do, sort of subscribe to VIP and then cancel and then subscribe whenever they want to. I mean, that's perfectly fine. But this allows people who were on recurring billing to continue to be on recurring billing in a way that makes all the lawyers happy. So,
a clever carrot. And here I thought you just wanted to give us free stuff.
Well, actually, I mean, that is part of it, Well, we had to do this in terms of the recurring billing part, but we also want to do a VIP push and things like that. So this is, like I said, we're kind of killing two birds with one standing stone. No, God.
That was terrible.
Yeah.
That was pretty terrible.
But yes, that was terrible. I'm embarrassed for myself. No, but there we go. But that's what's going on here. So if you log into VIP and you see a little pop-up or whatever, that's what that's about.
Try and, if you can, get him to turn it into a paladin or something slightly different than a fighter. That'd be kind of fun. In any case, so there was some other stuff. We were talking about this before the show. There's some other stuff, including an email that's kind of coming out. And I thought this would be a good time with Jerry on the show to kind of give us an idea of, you're now Standing Stone Games. How do you do things like update your account, buy new stuff, add point? Like, how does? Because it used to be myaccount.turbine.com, which I'm assuming, since it's part of Turbine, is no longer going to be the case.
Technically, you can still use myaccount.turbine.com for things like changing your email address, some of the other kind of things. I think you can cancel even your VIP maybe through my account, but we're largely shifting that stuff over to the DDO store in game. So all your subscriptions are going to be handled through the DDO store in game. And but yeah, I think you could still, like, say, manage your email address and a few other things through myaccount.turbine.com. And eventually we're going to probably move away from that underlying account management system to a different account management system, but there's no real hurry on that. It works right now, and the URL may not be very great, but whatever. So
let's see. So bonus days for the weekend, you can get plus 50% challenge rewards. So great time to run challenges. They're also really great for one-time XP bonuses too. So good time to run them. Stern News, there was no new sales this week. There was. I know you posted there was some issues with that.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's up yet. I've been waiting to hear from Tolero on it.
There.
Yeah, I know Tolero's been had a particularly difficult week this week, both getting this VIP program thing out, but also we're having an issue where we couldn't launch the new sales yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to get them out as soon as we can, and we're just going to extend the end date on the weekly sale for as long as we need to.
Sure, makes sense. That'll bring us to community news. Woohoo! Let's see. It's 222nd Chronicle of the Week. I'll try and cruise through this kind of quickly. Your DDO has created a new Kenneth crafting planner. We got a shout out for our Ask the Devs episode. The High Lords of Malkir hosting Titan Teaching Raid. That's tonight. It's probably actually already over. But they're still doing their teaching raids. I think he's actually been live streaming those on YouTube. If you want to watch those,
Mm-hmm.
if you can't actually be there or participate, or maybe you're on a wrong server or something like that, or a different server, you can still watch those. He's also got ones from a couple years ago up on his YouTube page as well. The guild for the week: Blackmoor Defenders, a Galanda-based high-level guild with large amount of experience and a full airship. That's interesting. How did they get a full airship? Because I can't find anything to put in the last. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, yeah, good point.
TeamSpeak server. They have a TeamSpeak server member in a Fellowship of Guilds, which is kind of cool. Yeah, Fellowship of Guilds. That's fun. So you can check them out. The comment for the week: which NPC would you want to put in charge of Evening Star, and why? Ooh, that's an interesting question. I should really start reading these when I cut and paste them, so I'm not thinking about them right off the cuff.
Under the principle of less government is good government, I'm going to say Elminster, because he'll never show up until the very end.
There you go.
But he'll yap all through it and drive you nuts, and then take credit.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you're right there.
No, I'm going with, I think the name was No, the gnome from the birthday event last year. I think that was her name, right? Or was it something else?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I want her because she gives gifts, and that was really cool.
Ooh.
Evennote, do you have an answer?
Oh, let's just make it Harry because he's awesome.
Jeez.
Definitely not Boyle.
Yeah. All right, fansite news. DDO Players News talked about the Producer's Letter, Gen Con, and more. Their 120th episode. Let's see. Even beats Abbott Heroic. Congratulations. Nice job.
Yeah, we could talk about that. I was there.
Oh, yeah?
Not only did... No, go ahead, Even. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, not only did Even and I beat the Abbott on Heroic, but for me, it was the first time in 10 years... This was a 10-year journey that came to its conclusion last Sunday night, where I actually beat the Abbott on a character legit, not as a soulstone. You know, I've got some Abbott completions, but that's because I was dead and then someone rezzed me at the end. I actually survived until the end of the Abbott and succeeded. So it was quite the moment for me this past weekend.
And you got a Noxious Embers too, as I recall.
Yeah, that's right.
Lucky you. That stuff's hard to get sometimes. Let's see. Mickey continued her Epic Elite and Legendary Elite rating. Week 13 of that. Enrique crafted his first weapon. DDO Gamer has a new Beholder GIF. RPG Overdrive is the newest show on DDO Stream. Woohoo! New show. It's always fun.
I think it's Wednesday nights.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Other stuff. DDO Gamer had not one, but two blogs reacting to the Producer's Letter. And he went really geeky with the graphs, too. It was pretty funny. The Gear Set Planner application got an update, so you can check that out. DDOCast news. DDOCast is back. We had our first episode this last Tuesday. We're back on DDOCast's Twitch stream because someone swiped my spot while we were on hiatus. But we're doing our I'm calling it our second season, just because it sounded like a good way to do it. And we started by running things at like the minimum level possible. So we ran Waterworks at level 1 and level 2.
I'm wondering if Reaper is going to be a good fit for DDO Splat.
Definitely will be. We haven't really figured out how we're gonna play it. There's kind of we'll probably do a balance of both, right? We'll do some Reaper, we'll do some of this. Right now, though, we're kind of all using new characters, so I don't know if we're ready for Reaper. And actually, we we wiped in like the first 7 minutes, so I had to restart Waterworks. We got pretty well swatted around a little bit. The other thing for DDOCast, our end of year survey, the 2016 survey, the one that I'm giving away prizes for, including a starter pack and point codes and community loot pools, courtesy of Cordovan. The deadline for that is going to be the 31st, so January. You have to do it by January. Okay, now practically that means as long as you get it before I get home on February 1st, you're probably going to be fine. But get it in soon. We had a great turnout. I think last I checked, there was already almost 240 responses. And I kind of have perused through some of the Guild Feud answers for questions, and there's some fun. There's going to be some fun questions for that coming up. So there you go. With that,
that was a fun quiz, actually, or a fun survey, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, good. I tried to come up with questions that... Coming up with the questions for this is actually really hard, because you want to pick questions that have a lot of answers, but not so many answers that everyone picks something different. I've had questions in the past where within 15, 20 people I've known I'm not going to use that question because every single answer is completely different. I think one of them I did like name a collectible, and it was like, okay, well, not using that because like the most any of them got was like 5 people. So this one there's some answers that are much more condensed but still variety enough to have some fun with them. So really looking forward to it. It should be a fun episode. With that, we're going to close out the show. Cordovan, you want to mention maybe mention at least DDO stream and where people can find the calendar and anything else you want to mention?
Yep, you can find the full schedule for DDO Stream. We have shows 7 days a week, and that's twitch.tv/DDO Stream. You can find the archives on both Twitch and YouTube. That's youtube.com/Dungeons and Dragons, one long word, no ampersand. Did want to reiterate that we do have Festivalt and the Midwinter Festival, or not Festival, but the Resia Ice Games and the Midwinter Festival that run through February 1st. So those are going to be shut off next Thursday, replaced with a different bonus. So this is your chance to take part in that event if you want to. Otherwise, like I said, we are targeting this next week for Update 34. Fingers crossed, if everything goes well, should be out by next weekend.
Evennote, anything you'd like to plug?
Oh, I would like to plug tomorrow night. I do stream on DDO Stream Sunday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, twitch.tv/DDO Stream. Tomorrow night we are having a Wonder Pot party. I'm going to give everybody who shows up from the guild a stack of 100 Wonder Pots from my extensive collection. I think we're going to run Dead Girl's Spellbook. I'm sure we'll run some other stuff as well. But just kind of drink Wonder Pots, see how long we stay alive. But yeah, I'm on there every Sunday night, 11 p.m. Eastern. Also, if you want to read my blog and be thoroughly bored, it's DDO... Wait, what is my blog? DDOeven.wordpress.com. My guide to cosmetic pets is somewhere on there if you look under the category pets. That is now updated with not only the first 97, but the 4 new Reaper pets. And I will be porting our DDO to a new site soon. Hosting places are weird, so there'll be more info on that coming up.
Cool. Yeah, so with that, we'll finish up here. Special thanks to everyone for listening to the show, especially the folks in the chat room. It's always fun to have a little bit of chat going on there. Thanks to my guests, Cordovan and Evennote, especially since I kind of put this show together a little bit last minute. Thanks for getting on with me today. And thanks to all the contributors from DDOCast. It's a great group of folks that really help make this show happen, including the listeners. I mean, that helps too a lot. Especially thank you for filling out the survey. That gives me some great information, tips and questions that I can use, and things that you guys want to hear us talk about. Also, thanks to Standing Stone Games and Wizards of the Coast for making this happen, making DDO happen, and thanks to Cyberbears for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOcast.com, or you can also support us on Patreon if you'd like to do that. You can also hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show, have a comment on this episode, maybe a question you'd like to hear us answer on the show, or a topic you'd like to hear us talk about or debate, or hey, you just want to say hi, you can say that too. Leave us a comment or email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media at DDOCast on Twitter, and you can follow us there for the latest cast updates. Our closing tip for the week comes from Fallout on Kyber. His tip is to listen to Patrick. He knows most of the game mechanics and how to play, except for the rare cases where he's wrong. So until
That's awesome.
until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chests level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.